We have a new episode of the 2024 Republican primary reality show. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley pulled key support from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in a hypothetical GOP 2024 presidential primary, putting former President Trump ahead in a three-way race, according to a new poll. The Yahoo News YouGov poll found that DeSantis leads Trump in a hypothetical head-to-head matchup 45% to 41%. But with Haley in the mix, Trump leads with 38% to DeSantis' 35% and Haley's 11%. Pollsters also found DeSantis leading President Biden in a hypothetical general election matchup 44% to 43%, but Biden leads Trump by 6 points, 47% to 41%. Trump is the only major Republican candidate to have officially jumped in the race, but Haley is expected to launch her bid next week, potentially becoming the first major challenger to him to mount a bid. DeSantis has been rumored as a possible contender for the GOP nomination and has consistently placed at least second in hypothetical Republican primary polls. In some cases, he has been in first ahead of Trump. Many other prominent Republicans, including former Vice President Mike Pence, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, have indicated that they are considering their own runs, which could lead the Republican primary to become a crowded race. Almost half of Republicans leaning respondents said they approve of Haley running, while a fifth disapprove, but 30% said they are not sure. The poll found Trump holds a strong lead over her in a head-to-head matchup, 54% to 27%. Trump leads DeSantis by 1 point, 37%, 36% in a hypothetical 9-candidate matchup, taking into account other possible candidates. The poll was conducted among 1,585 U.S. adults from February 2nd to February 6th. The margin of error was 2.8 percentage points. So, the 2016 race, particularly the Republican primary, and the outcome of it is something that even people who were there still don't seem to understand the reasons it happened, or really don't seem capable of piecing together all the different factors. What Trump had going for him in that election year was high name recognition, a group of very loyal supporters who are many of whom are still with him today. This sense of unknown, because people didn't know for sure how he would play as a non-politician politician. And there was another factor, and we're not even going to mention the disgruntled Democrats that were upset over what happened to Sanders, the Democratic primary. But one of the other factors in the primary itself was the crowded field. That 16, 18, however many, a dozen and a half people that were running was the largest presidential campaign field from either major party in modern history. It was enormous. The Democrats later had even more people run in 2020, but the point I'm making is a lot of commentators in retrospect really don't like to bring up, or really just don't often mention, that a big part of what helped Trump defeat the Republican establishment in that primary was that they had so many candidates that were all siphoning votes from each other, to where by the end of it, especially after Bush got out in following getting destroyed in South Carolina, many Republicans were, even if they were unenthusiastic, supporting someone like Cruz, because whether they liked it or not, he had the highest chance of overturning Trump being in second place in the field. So, what I wanted to convey is that I'm really worried with Haley getting in the race, and not, maybe not as much with her, because, like I said, voting doesn't occur until next year. That means if she gets in on the 15th, which is what she's expected to do, that means there's pretty much an entire year for her to improve her standing in polls and, become for Trump what DeSantis, which I think is very much possible. In a year, a lot can change. Doesn't mean it will happen, but it's something that could happen. But what I'm worried about is her getting in this race sets a bad precedent for other ego-driven and not exactly very intelligent in their plans of getting Trump to not be the nominee, Republicans to start jumping in. Because I'm going to tell you outright, I think someone like Asia Hutchinson, someone like Mike Pompeo, someone like John Bolton, these people have no chance whatsoever of getting the nomination themselves. They're unknowns who have nothing to run on, who are not interesting in the slightest. They're just people that feel like I've had these credentials, I should run, and then when they get their 1, 2, 3% that's siphoned off from Haley or DeSantis, it's going to further help Trump get the nomination. They are playing a very dangerous game by getting more and more people into this field, which I think will happen because a lot of these people are suffering from the same syndrome that affected the Democrats in 2020. So the 2016 Democratic field had like 5 people, right? All were relatively no names outside of Clinton before they ran that year. But the 2020 field ended up having like 15, a whole bunch of people run. People who it's generally agreed upon by some commentators would wanted to run in 2016, but it felt it was Clinton's turn, and so they were all like now jumping in. And that's pretty much what's happening here with these Republicans. A lot of them felt like Trump should step aside. Trump is done. These are various things that they've said. And unfortunately, they don't want to reconcile with the fact that no, it still isn't your turn, because at this point he's got 30 or 40% of voters that are going to back him no matter what in the primary. And the only way one of you guys can possibly come close to beating him is if you consolidate around one person. And they all think that one person is them. They all believe they're the individual who's going to lead them out to greener pastures. And really, like I said, Haley being there, she's taking like 3 points, 4 points. If it's just a 3-man race and either she or DeSantis gets out before voting takes place, then this won't affect the dynamics of the race too much. But I know how these politicians are. They're like moths to a flame when it comes to trying to get in elections where they see another one is like interested in doing it. So you're going to see a whole bunch of other people probably get in. Then we're going to have this giant mess that helps Trump win. And it's even sadder when you consider that, because like I said, I'm very upfront about the fact that I don't think Haley is going to win the primary, like no chance whatsoever. And a lot of that comes down to, I just don't think Republican primary vote, the majority of them are open to supporting minority or female candidates as their as the person on the top ticket at least. I just don't believe that is something that they're open to doing. And that's just my opinion. As things currently stand, I don't see it. But what's really interesting and kind of sad to me is that between her, DeSantis, and Trump, I actually think she probably would have the best chance of beating Biden. And the reason I say that is because she retired as a UN ambassador or U.S. ambassador to the UN right around, like roughly about a year or so before the virus went into effect. So she's not, the whole like denying stuff when it comes to that whole situation really isn't a thing you can stick to her. And DeSantis has a lot of that culture war stuff that turns off some, moderate voters who are like, okay, man, why do you have such a like problem with gender identity? Like, are you serious? She doesn't have that either. So I think if she ran against Biden, she could beat him. I'm not gonna say she would beat him, but I think out of the 3 candidates that are expected, or at least that this poll is concerning, she probably has the highest chance in general. Because a lot of the stuff that's actually really obnoxious about her, like the fact that she supported the U.S.'s involvement in the devastation of Yemen by Saudi Arabia, those are things that that moderate, regular, average voters would either not look up themselves or just not care about, because we know Americans in general don't care about foreign policy. But yeah, her jumping in and taking off support from DeSantis is something that still doesn't affect the race too much because it's only three people and we're a year away from voting taking place, so the dynamics can change. But you're going to see other candidates get in as well. You hear Bolton talking about running, and Hutchinson, I'm going to make a decision by the end of spring, and it's like these people all just, it's like they look in the mirror and they see themselves as something that they're not. DeSantis disgusts me for various reasons that we've laid out here, but he's a guy who, if he gets into the race, it makes a lot of sense. He's polling better than anyone that's not the former president. He's been and attacked by him, which shows that Trump, to some degree, is worried or afraid of him. So even if I'm not a fan of DeSantis, I can still say, hey, you know what? He should be in this race. He should jump in and see how he does, and if he can turn the tide against the former president. And really, this poll, more than anything else, shows how full of crap Republican politicians, especially the ones in Congress, tend to be. People like McConnell, and he's not there anymore, but like Paul Ryan, where they're talking about Trump being a proven loser and his political influence has diminished. And you can't say that when you have polls that are showing when more people get into your primary, his advantages go up and up. You can't say Trump is a proven loser. He has diminished influence, which they've done. I've covered those in separate videos. But then he's leading your among the people that your current base of voters want to see as president. Because make no mistake, if DeSantis doesn't get in this race, and Haley does, but these other people do as well, you're not going to see Trump 46, Haley 45%. You're going to see Trump 46%, Haley 22%, Mike Pence 3%. It's going to be a mess, and they're going to hand the nomination to Trump by splintering and siphoning off the vote, just like they did in 2016. And the reason they do that indirectly, again, comes down to ego, but also, look at these candidates. I asked before, what is the major policy difference between DeSantis and Trump? No one can tell me. I asked before, what is the major policy difference between Haley and Trump? No one can tell me. In fact, they actually asked her that on Fox, and she said something about her gender because, these, I don't know what it is, these politicians, they love, like, Republicans love talking about the culture war, but then, or like identity politics, but then minority candidates love mentioning their, like, features, like, oh, this is my gender, or this is my ethnicity, they just, it's ironic, but my point is that, so you have a field that's not really about actual issues like substantive differences from each other. And they don't seem to recognize that when you have effectively nothing to run on other than your name and, platitudes like, I'm going to restore America, you don't need 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people repeating that. So what I think should happen is I think Haley should get in the race because I do believe it's too early to just throw everything at DeSantis. Him being there as the only other person for a whole year can be more damaging to him than, if it was a crowded field. But I think it should at least be a 3-person race. And by October, November, December, whatever, like around when they start voting in Iowa, if Haley is up on DeSantis, he should get out. If DeSantis is up on Haley, she should get out. And then whichever one of them is then higher than the up should be the one that gets voted alongside Trump. Because I think if it's just a 3, 4, maybe 4, but I think it's harder to consolidate like certain concessions when it's more than 2 people, because ego does start getting involved the more and more people you have in a race. But if it's just a few people running against Trump, I really think they can defeat him. I think they can get enough not even regular Republican voters, but like just Republican voters that didn't like the Capitol riot. They don't like, all stuff like that. Whatever supposedly moderate voters that they have can come together along with the ones that are just actually tired of Trump and and crack the I don't want to call it the glass ceiling, but certainly they can overcome him. But do I think these politicians with their egos, with their sense of, I should be the one who becomes the GOP nominee for president, takes down socialist Biden, do I think they're capable of consolidating and having this extremely layered strategy of how they're going to stop this madman from taking the nomination and ruining their chances to stop Biden's second term? No, I don't. I don't think they are humble enough to do something like that. And I hope I'm wrong. I don't like being right about bad forecasts like that because I don't want Trump to be the nominee. But then again, none of these other people are really that exciting either. Like I said, Haley is someone who is going to be done in more by just things that are out of her control than stuff she actually should be done in by, which are some pretty atrocious positions. But I think in a general election, she could stick her finger up and go, hey, I'm more moderate than these other people because I, got rid of the Confederate flag on the state capitol, and I'm not part of the, anti-vaccine crew coming through doing their thing. I believe if she were the nominee, they probably could retake the White House. But there's just too many voters that are tied to Trump for it to be something I can just guarantee. So it's going to be an interesting race.